Hey everyone, I'm Harrison Tellion with Bottom Line Design,
And I'm agree.
and this is
Josh Dickinson.
awesome. Josh, so Josh is a really talented photographer, friend of mine. Josh, do you want to just dive right in? Tell us a little about your Genesis story, how you got started.
Yeah, so I am a commercial photographer director based in New York City. So basically, I make the ads you see on your TV and your tiny device in your hand, and you're probably listening to this on. But yeah, went to school for photo, and it was all fine art, and somehow ended up in New York after that because that whole oh, I just spent how much money on college? I should probably try to use this fake piece of paper that I have in my hands now. And years later, somehow, just between assisting other people and working at big photo store, I just found my niche, and it ended up being this still life world of, little pictures of beauty products and food and whatever, you name it, making acne cream sexy. That's the dream.
And Oreos.
Right.
Yes.
Well, what was the story of you finding your niche? Where did you start out? Did you have an idea of where you wanted to kind of end up? What was that journey?
Oh, there was not even an idea of what was out there. It was my college prepared me very little for the real world of hey, this photography thing, let's make money doing this. Oh, you want to pay your rent? That's funny. So I came to New York after straight out of college, and I worked at B&H, that giant photo, video, audio store, for a year, and absolutely hated it. But every day people would come in being like, yo, how do I get this look? I have a job coming up. And I'm like, wait, you don't know how to do this and someone's hiring you? Why aren't I the person doing this?
Whoa.
So I started reaching out and assisted other photographers, and I basically assisted every genre, and at the time was making my own work, and they were just bad portraits, lifestyle portraits, the thing you think of when you're oh, photographer, let's put a attractive person in front of a camera. I'm yeah, that's what you do. That's photography. And I just wasn't good at it. It was fine, but now I show those pictures to people I mentor, and I'm no, you all have to start somewhere. Let's laugh at this.
Right. Is that your sort of your embarrassing early stage work that you had to grind out to get to where you are now?
Kind of it just felt oh yeah, I'm just gonna take pictures of the people around me and stuff, and it just this, it's so saturated, especially now that everyone has a cell phone that is just as good as a big camera.
Right.
Anyone can take those, casual smiling person on the beach or whatever. And it was through assisting random photographers and other people passing my name along that I ended up on these jobs that I ended up with a still life person, and I'd never been on one of those shoots before. And I was oh, this vibe, I like. It's much more calm. I started, my first internship was for a big fashion photographer who's in all the Vogues and all those things. And the first time I went on set, they literally built there's something called a V flat. It's essentially 2 4x8 foot pieces of foam core with a tape hinge on them, so that you make a V and they stand up on their own. Yeah. So they made a fort of those around me where I was at a computer, and told me, don't be seen, don't talk to anyone, you eat last. And it was this messed up culture where I was I don't want to be part of this. This is not how we treat people, just as a whole ethos.
Do you think that is this the fashion world? Yeah, what is that?
It's the cool kids club, and it's much more prevalent in the fashion world for the directors, photographers to be more of celebrities in their own, the people that they're photographing. And there's just more egos in that world. And I just wasn't a fan of it. I can kind of see where they're coming from. Oh, who's this random intern showing up? Yeah, don't talk to the head of this giant multinational company, or this Victoria's Secret model.
They need to sequester you this much in this
they can do it in nicer ways.
Yeah. So what you're saying basically is that the Devil Wears Prada
is real.
Doesn't just apply. Yeah, it's real, and it even extends to fashion photography, not just fashion journalism.
Oh yeah, 100%. So after doing that, I was okay, so that's one end, and then I ended up on a still life set, and I just remember the photographer being really calm And like, since the sets are smaller, it's a tabletop usually, or most of the time, it was just like me and him and like one person running the computer. And it was like, okay, turn this up a little bit, turn this down. And it was like little detail things. And I was just like, oh, everyone was really nice to each other and like had a good time and no one is freaking out. Like the stress level was just more chill. And so
Calm.
I was like, I kind of liked that. And then at that time I was building my portfolio. So I went and shot these pictures in my living room of just random things I had. Like, oh, I think I took like my roommate's like Wii was one of the first things I ever shot. And then like a random bottle of like whiskey. I just put it on my nightstand. And I was like, just took pictures of it. And
do you remember the whiskey?
It was Dewar's. It was like a really old bottle of Dewar's I took from my dad.
Thumbnail.
Yeah,
oh wow!
I just like stole it from my dad. I'm pretty sure.
I wanted to go back because I feel like the hardest jump is that 0 to 1. So for you, it was B&H going into that first fashion shoot.
Yeah.
How many instances did you have at B&H where you were like, "Why am I not doing that?"
Oh, it was every day.
Do you happen to?
It was like literally every single day. I also just there's this one person type of person that would come in at least basically once a day. You could guarantee it, and it was someone asking for that music video look. And in my mind, I'm thinking back to like late 90s, early 2000s, like MTV, and I'm like, you mean like the P. Diddy, Missy Elliott, like fisheye, like where they're like
the fish? Oh yeah, where it's like the Buster was like knocking.
Yeah. So like in
green
my mind,
Lambo in the back,
like that's what I'm thinking of. I'm like, so that, and you're like, you're doing customer service, so you ought to be nice about it. You're like, oh, you mean this? And you show it to them, and like camera gear and video gear, all this is like it's all expensive, like it's, and so I'd be like, so. On like the cheapest one I can recommend starts at like 300 and like they go up to whatever many thousands of dollars you want to spend. And they would get mad at me for it being like 300. That's more than I'm being paid for the whole day. In my mind, I'm just like, who is you're agreeing to do a whole shoot for 300? Like that's
holy cow.
I'm like, and you have like, this is not a solo thing. Like you need a team to do these things. And so I was just like, who are these people? They don't seem to have like, I won't even say a business sense, but like a basic common sense to do this and like not lose money trying to do a thing. But yeah, so those people came in every single day. And I was like, these people are like there's ways to do this without spending money. And like, I'm just like, I could do this. Why aren't I doing it?
And what were those moments where like, do you happen to remember something that kind of was like that? Do you happen to remember that epiphany moment where you're like, you know what? B&H is just not going to cut it for me anymore. I've heard too many of these same instances happen. I want to now do it myself. What did that moment in your life look like?
I could feel it. Like it was just a back of my mind, like itch that I could kind of feel like even the day I started there. It was like, this isn't going to suffice. Like the first day they put me selling camera bags and I was like, I don't even own a camera bag. Like I don't care. And then in like, they have trainings and stuff. And I caught the trainee, like or trainer saying false information, just like basic camera stuff that was like wrong. And I was like, no. So at that point I was like, let's see how this goes. And it was just very much like being there. I was like, oh, I'm a doer. Like I want to be hands-on doing the thing, not just sitting behind a desk selling people stuff. And then also like occasionally you sell something that's like your entire yearly salary in like an hour and you don't even, you're like,
yeah, it's like all motivation.
It was the time I was like, here's a $50,000 camera. Like, cool. I don't even get a bonus for this. Sweet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Seriously. Yeah. You sell like a Hasselblad and it's like suddenly like, okay, like I was part of that sale.
Also, right? I'm 22 years old at the time. Like I'm selling a Hasselblad. Like I've never been on a real photo shoot. Like, and I'm selling like this thing that's like Hasselblad to someone. I'm like, I kind of know what I'm doing in theory, but like, no.
Yeah. So do you find, I don't want to like, bore you with these questions about your early start, but I do feel like this 0 to 1 will help a lot of like the type of viewers that may be watching this right now. If they were in a similar position where they're probably working like odd jobs or retail,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they don't even have that luxury to work in the industry space in retail. How would you recommend that they get started? And you even said yourself, like, you didn't have like a bunch of like the crazy equipment that's probably behind you right now back in the day. And we all know, like, pros will always tell us, like, it's never about the equipment. It's never about the software. It's always about like the person.
Yeah.
What did that transition look like for you, like building up your skill sets to define Josh Dickinson?
Yeah. A lot of it was, well, the jump and the building the skill set were like a little different because I didn't do the jump directly from working retail to shooting. Like I did the step of working as crew for other commercial photographers, because it's kind of, there's no, to my knowledge, there's no real school where people actually teach you what like you need to do to make that successful. It's such a, like everyone knows about this, but it's such a niche community that like it just doesn't exist. So my jump from B&H to, I just call it like my start of freelancing, because B&H was my first ever full-time job, and that's the only one I've ever had. And it was for less than a year. I was just like, no, this isn't for me. But I knew it was going to happen. I was very unhappy there. And I started saving up money to invest in some equipment just for my, like, a nice digital camera, like I have some like on-camera flashes, but like the cheap stuff basically. And thankfully, like I did have a little bit of a discount working there, not on like the good items, but like the cheap stuff that they rebranded themselves, like those had a discount. Of course, all that gear broke in the first year of me using it, but but yeah, so I knew I was going to do it and just like kind of bit my tongue for a few months, saved up some money, bought basic gear that I thought I could use to, if like a small job came by, I could at least do it without having to like figure out renting something or borrowing and putting myself in a place where I didn't want to be to make it happen. And also just gave me the tools I needed to practice my own craft.
What was that first client like? So you're telling us like you made that transition from B&H, or maybe it sounds like you were like a PA at some point.
Oh yeah, I just left.
And then
I was just like,
you just
nothing lined up. Literally nothing lined up.
Yeah.
I just had.
Oh, so you weren't like doing something where like on the side you're trying to see if you can get some gigs or get some shoots.
I had no time.
You just dove in.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Because the work schedule there is really weird. Since it's retail hours, it's like 9 to 7 or something, and there's no windows in the building because they cover them all to merchandise. So like when you leave, you're just kind of like zonked. You're just like, I just need to go like not be asked questions about things for a bit, and like it just was very draining for me. Like yeah, the only sunlight I saw was riding my bike to and from like Brooklyn to Manhattan every day, which also doesn't help your mental health of just being in darkness or like artificial light all day. But yeah, I just knew I was going to jump to freelance and just,
okay.
So I, for a bit had nothing lined up, and I just emailed photographers, agencies, everything, being like, hey, do you need an assistant? Do you need like, I'm happy to like meet up, grab coffee. Like I'll work a day for free to see if we're a good match, just to like get into the rotation. And I just like hustled really. Like,
tell us a little bit more about that hustle.
Oh, it's
like what
it's doing work you don't like doing. It's being annoying. And you're like, I am annoying people. And now I know, like, now that I'm on the other side, it's like, it's the luck of hitting someone up at the right time in their life where they happen to need, like, whatever opportunity, like, you're trying to fill. But yeah, I, like, invested in some email marketing things, or even at that time, I think I just Googled. It was just, like, photographers in New York. And then like, and then I figured like, well, if a photographer is represented at an agency, that means they're making enough money that like someone else is taking a cut. So like they probably have more positions on set when they shoot. So I would email the agency too and be like, hey, so-and-so needs an assistant, and then everyone on the roster I would email. And I found like the limits of what you can send in a Gmail account in a day before it thinks you're spam. It's around like 3,000.
So you were sending 3,000 emails?
Not at that point with the personalized ones, but later in my career when I was hitting up people to get like editorial jobs. Yeah, I was like I used a special, like a program that helped find people's emails, and I like to kick it off.
Right.
I was sending more than 3,000. It was like 3,000 emails at a time because I had to batch them into like a BCC thing, or it was like 3,000 in a day, but then only like 600 something per email, like on BCC.
Right.
Like I figured it out just by doing it, not by looking it up. I was like, oh, like the Google server rejected me on this one. Like, let's try again. So it's just a lot of like doing that annoying work and just blasting people. Like, hey.
A lot of responses from Mailer Damon.
Yeah. It's Matt Damon's brother, I think.
Yeah. There's like a great Workaholics episode where it's like they're trying to land a gig with some famous man, and he's like, "It's all right." Like his assistant emailed me back saying, anyway, joke for another time. I think question.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, like, what was the gap of time from when you left your full-time job to the first time somebody gave you $1 for your work?
For assisting, probably like
sure, yeah.
it was maybe like over a month or so. Like I mentally knew like I needed padding to get by for like at least 3 months of trying to reestablish myself as this other role and just because the freelance world, it's just who you know, and like once you get that rolling, people you work with recommend you when they're not free, and it kind of just spitballs from there. It's like the community is kind of good in that way, but that first jump, it's just being prepared to like do nothing. And at a certain point, I had to learn to like I would send all these emails, and by like noon, it'd be like, like my email says I can't do anything else today, and it was like, what do I do now? Like you had to find like hobbies to fulfill yourself outside of work and things like that. And then all your friends are at work, so you're like, oh well, what do I?
Right.
I could guess them.
How'd you find that? How'd you find that? So, like, I guess I have two questions on that. Like, who was that first person that believed in you, and what did they believe in you with? And then, how did you find motivation? Because when we're all entrepreneurs on this call, right? Like, how do you find that motivation in those moments where there are moments of waiting during your entrepreneurial founding story? Like, how did you find that motivation?
Yeah. Well, I think the first person that believed in me, I got put in touch with people who were already assisting, like I think it was like someone who ran the photo labs at the school I had went to. They graduated like 4 years before me, and they gave me the email of someone who was already assisting, like fashion photographers, which is how I ended up like at that fashion photographer thing. But they had their own test shoots, and I assisted them to kind of learn the ropes. So I was like giving my time for free on weekends doing that whenever they had something. And then at some point they were like, oh, like you know the ropes, like you're good enough that if I call in sick or like someone reaches out for a basic job, I can be like, I can't do it, but here's this guy, he's kind of green, but he's good. Like, and so I think my first one, was that. And I think it was just like an e-commerce, like shooting people in clothes on white. And I remember having to like hunt down that check too. Like that was like, they didn't pay me even net like 60. It was like past net 90. And I was
wow. Okay, so you got introduced to the art of collections
real quick,
like at the very beginning.
Like, I mean, I deal with it even now. Like, I have a successful business now, and like even now, clients are like. I was actually out to drinks with a producer from an agency I did a job with like last year, and I was like joking. I mean, I had a little too much drink at the time, and I like let slip. I was like, I know you guys didn't get the advance for that job you're shooting today, but also I have this job that like I built 140 days ago, and that was after the retouching, and like.
So this next round's on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that went for the company card drinks that night. So
as is just.
Yeah, so like stuff like that. Like sadly, it's the way the industry works, and you're kind of at the mercy of like the giant companies at a certain point. Like the smaller companies are a little easier because there's like you can find a person to like answer.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the freelance thing. And then
so collections is industry agnostic.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
People just don't want to pay.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I was trying to think.
Yeah, and I think. I was just gonna say on that subject, like I feel like one of the like as an entrepreneur, once you actually find something that people are willing to pay for, you're only really going to get as far as your ability to collect on it. Because yeah, if you have any sort of cash cycle type stuff, I mean, this is where also the bottom line in the bottom line design comes out, right? Is like, yeah, of course it's really important to be great at the craft, but if you're not able to collect the money that your customers owe you,
Yeah. Well,
you're just going to get
it's like
eaten
I need to
alive.
pay the rent. Like, like rent's not cheap.
Yeah,
Like if I don't have internet, I can't email people. Like I have all the, we all have these bills. I don't know.
yeah,
I've quickly learned just from that first jump, it's like always have padding. Like at least for the freelance world, like yeah, you can put money in savings and stuff, but like keep money liquid because you don't know what'll happen. Like you might have all these jobs lined up, but then what if a bunch of them just don't pay you and you're like waiting it out and you're like, it's as much as it's you're given right to like, hey, like you owe me money. At the same time, it's not a good look being like, hey, I need this. Like then you look almost unsuccessful begging your client and like, I need to be paid. Like I'm going to overdraft. Like you can't say that to, like it just looks
Yeah.
bad on you, even though they're the ones not paying you on your agreed contract. Like
That must have taken a toll on your mental health, like very early on in your career. How did you, and you kind of like touched on it earlier, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Like, how did you protect your ambition and integrity and motivation during that time?
in the beginning, I mean, I just kind of told myself I didn't have a choice. It was like, I'm like making the jump. It was like, okay, well, I'm the only one who's going to get myself work now. Like no one owes me anything. It's just,
right.
if I'm not driving like business to myself, like no one else is. And I think from very early on, I learned, especially in photography, like no one cares about what you make or do. Like you have to make them care. Like, you go to any party and you tell them what you do. And for me, it's like, oh, my Joey takes pictures too. And you're like, cool. Like that's not, it could be, just think of like that
Yeah.
aunt talking to like clients, that's probably what half of
Yeah.
the people trying to get work
Yeah.
from them sound like. And yeah,
What were some of those elements that like you found yourself deploying to make them care?
Yeah.
a lot of like, just from off the bat, acting like their friend. It was a lot of, it feels like for me, at least like, I think I'm introverted. I could not be, who knows, or maybe not anymore, but it's very much an act of being very open and friendly and just making someone enjoy the experience of being around you because they have a choice of hiring other people. And a lot of times clients aren't the most savvy to like who is the most technically or creatively like ambitious or like who's the best at doing that. A lot of times people just pick, the people they work with based on who they like interacting with. And it's kind of providing that service. I was like, oh, like I just need to be, like, oh, so nice to meet you. That's why I always did like off the bat, if I was trying to work with someone, I'd be like, oh, let's grab a coffee. So like that personal stuff, you're like, oh, well, like,
Right.
in an email, you can say like, no, but if you don't pitch someone anything in person, you're just like, oh, let's just grab a coffee. It's harmless. And then face to face, if you kind of like pitch like, oh, let's work together.
Yeah.
They usually don't say no. They'll say like, oh yeah, I'll keep you in mind. And even if they don't mean to,
Right.
like it's still there because they remember that interaction and sitting down with you. And yeah, it's a lot of, yeah.
So do you like, we love talking with entrepreneurs about what, in Startup Land gets described as the go-to-market motion, sort of the steps you're going to take to go find customers and find customers consistently. Do you bake into your routine at this point time every week or every month dedicated just to socializing within the industry or industries that your customers are in? Is that sort of part of your operating model now?
Surprisingly not. I think I might do it subconsciously. Also, just a lot of my friend base now, having like worked in the industry for like I think working at the level I'm at, it's probably coming up on like 7-8 years. A lot of just my close friends happen to be sometimes in positions like producers at agencies, or they just work in the industry somewhere. So like we'll always talk and do that. And I know in the beginning, a lot of it was like before I had representation with like an agency that does some of these things for me, it was, yeah, I sent so many. There was a lot of those emails just sending out. It was socializing my work more than socializing myself because no one knew who I was yet. Um, and anytime I, a friend was like, oh, I'm going out with so-and-so, like their partner works at this company. And it's like, oh yeah, maybe I'll go. And it's not even to like brown nose and like get them. It's just, if you're in someone's orbit, like if they like you and they might reach out, and it's kind of like, oh, if I'm in their orbit, cool. I don't know. It's that weird. Like you don't want to, you don't want to like target people to be friends to get work from them or anything, but it's still just making opportunity. Like people trust people in their circle more than a complete stranger.
Totally. Yeah. And like there is, I feel like what you just described gets like such a bad rap really quickly if you don't understand it, which is like, yeah, it could be perceived as like targeting, but really it's just like, I think that to be an entrepreneur, you have to genuinely want to meet everyone under the sun and get to know them, because entrepreneurs, like, we're always about just consuming new knowledge, meeting new people, understanding stories so that we can learn and better ourselves. How did you go about like establishing those authentic relationships and then it not panning out? Like what ended up happening where you were like, did you end up being able to go back to those people later on after you kind of like got some stuff under your belt?
I don't think I have. I know there's always like, because it is such a small world, like I've, in the past, like kind of started dating someone in the industry that you meet, and then like that doesn't end well. And then all of a sudden, like years later, they're like some high position who actually hires photographers all of a sudden. When you met them, they were like lower end. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's not gonna, I guess I'm not gonna hit up that company for marketing. Because like, as long as that person's in charge, like, I'm just hearing, just like stories. Hearing your name, it's like, all right, like whatever. So like, the goal is never to be a bad person or anything, but sometimes like friends and lovers break up for whatever reasons, and there's friction. We've all been there. But meeting the people and like setting up like who your circle is, I think a lot of like, back when you're saying it's tough for people to understand, like you like almost, I hate saying targeting people that are like in your industry, but it's also, those are the like-minded people because they're in your orbit. They're not doing the exact thing you're doing, but they're hiring people that are doing what you're doing. And like, so you're both thinking about creating the similar things. So even if it's like, I might not make work that person's company they're at now, like does anything with, but we can talk big picture and like do that. And those relationships down the line, they end up working at a different company. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, this new place I'm at has a creative direction that's like right up your alley.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like what you're describing is something that a lot of people seem to be waking up to now, is that oftentimes they would talk about product market fit. And a lot of the problem for a lot of ways, a lot of people waste a lot of their time. Honestly, even like us included in the past, was like, if you don't have founder market fit and you're not naturally you can't help but socialize and connect with people and get to know them in your industry or within the segment of customers you're trying to serve, it's always going to be an uphill battle, And like, I mean, the example even that you gave of like, dating somebody in your industry and now they're sort of like a hot shot. Sure, like on one side, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But on the other side, I actually kind of see it as a positive signal that you're so naturally among your people that the kind of people you work with are also like so value aligned that if the right person came along, you date them as well.
Well, also like, I don't know, I find talent attractive. Like if someone makes cool things and like has a good eye, like I work in a visual field. Like if you also like have a good eye for things, I'm like, yeah, that's attractive. Like I'm not going to date someone with bad taste.
But yeah. But I mean, even the example you gave of like how you were out with a customer for drinks and you like, you had gotten tipsy. Like it sounds absurd, but I feel like that's kind of like a strong signal that you're in the right lane, right? that like this is a space that you're in that you can actually socialize with the people who you do business with.
Yeah.
Because then, like you said, it's all about who you know.
And at the end of the day, like for my type of work, like when the days I actually get hired and we're on shoots, those start at 10-hour days and easily go to 12. Like for motion, they're like 12 is the standard. It's like you're in a studio with these people, especially if it's like, you know, you have a week-long shoot. You know, that's 5 days, that's 50 hours at least. Like you want to get along with these people. You want to have a good rapport and be able to communicate the things like, oh, like there's an art director, creative director telling you they want it a certain way. And if you already have conversations with them, you can see where they're coming from. Like that just flows easier. Then they want to work with you more.
Right. And then, I mean, it's kind of like pick your poison. You know, do you want to spend 5-10-hour days where you're in the calm of the product photography, or do you want to be like shoved into a corner with like a dunce cap on and then like them being like, if I see you make eye contact with anyone, you're over. You're finished in this industry forever.
You said excuse me to the wrong person at the craft food table. Like,
you're finished. I'm going to make sure you never get another gig in this town again.
Obviously, without naming any names, like, do you have like a terrible story for us?
That one was probably the worst, the worst thing. Also on that same shoot, since I was the bottom of the barrel, the photographer, we were shooting at the now like defunct Milk Studios, which for a while like had the reputation of being like one of the uppity, the fancy ones. Like they delivered fresh orchids every few weeks to every studio in there, and like there was Aesop soap in all the bathrooms. Like, granted, once my career kicked off, I did like shooting there. I made friends with like the studio booker, and like they did like they were very nice to me.
Thanks, Milk. Milk the martyr. Yeah.
Like they were very nice to me and helped me out. But like some of the people that did shoot there, it was a type of world. But the photographer, usually like there was like hierarchy of like the second or first assistant would tell me what to do because like I was the bottom of the barrel, and the photographer came directly up to me and asked me for a pot of tea, and then he did like one of those like, oh, I don't think you heard me right. I didn't say like straight from Parks and Rec when he's like, no, I think you heard a lot of eggs. I want all of your eggs. He was like, no, not a cup of tea. I want a pot of tea. And I'm like, I'm in a freaking photo studio. Like,
right. Yeah. Like, what do you want
like,
from me?
There's hot water. Like,
here, let me,
it's like making the band, that like famous scene from the MTV show where like Diddy asks like the people to get the cheesecake, and they have to like basically like walk across Manhattan by foot to get like a slice of cheesecake for him.
And you're like, there's other tasks I have to be doing, but you're kind of important because you're like in charge and you're the one hiring me, and like I think I ended up making it happen somehow. I just kind of pulled the like stressed lowest person on the totem pole face to the to like the people working there. Just like, I don't know. My boss told me it just needs to be a pot of tea. I just don't.
and the people probably that like the ops people who like run the space were like, oh, we see this like every
like 15 minutes later, a pot of boiling water and like tea, like a tea set came out. Where am I?
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, I always find that like people that have an aura around them inspire others around them to kind of just whip action into order out of literally nowhere.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to ask you about is how did you find yourself dealing with like people that maybe like brought you down or didn't believe in you? It could be like friends, family, industry professionals.
I mean, really, thankfully, everyone in my family, like they pretty much know what I do. Like, but no one was ever negative. Like, I had the fortune, like both my parents went to like have a creative background. My dad went to photo school and for years was a retoucher when it was airbrushing, and my mom's a graphic designer. So like when I was like, yeah, I want to do photography, they were just like, cool, you're going to go to college? Great, because you don't have a choice because we were upper middle class and that's what you do.
Right.
And did you want to go to college?
I never crossed my, like, I don't think I thought about it. until the day where my parents like, you have to go to college, right?
Mm.
Like, I think that was the quote. It was like, you have to go, right?
Wow.
And I was like, now I do. Um,
Yeah, now I do. Wait, was it a choice at some point? Would you go back to college
oh
again?
yeah, like I think, I mean, not now, like I'm too old and don't like drinking that much for that now, but like, as an experience, yeah. Like, did I learn some cool photo things? Sure. Did I learn a lot more of like how to be a human and like take care of myself? Like that's, and like socialize with people. Like that was the bigger experience than it's like just being on your own and doing that. And yeah, like making friendships from nothing. It was like skills that you don't get in like growing. Well, I guess if you moved maybe, but like for me, I lived in the same town my whole life.
Right.
So it was like I knew where these people were.
Right.
But
And I have a question, kind of bringing things back to the present real quick. Like, what's really cool about getting to talk with someone like you is that you've found your groove. It's clear that the people who are in your industry know that they can come to you to get great work done. Mm. And so like now that you are where you are compared to where you were right after you left your full-time job, how do you think about goals you want to hit or where you want to take things in the next 12 months or the next 24 months, once all this stuff has been figured out at the level that
now
it has?
I feel like the motivation to do things is so much harder now because like the risk isn't there. Like there's the fire of you don't have a choice, like make this work. It's not really like I can, honestly, I have enough money to kind of keep going, and I'm fortunate enough now I own all my own equipment, so I can do that. And it's like once you have something, you take it for granted, kind of. So I think now it's taking those relationships I have with some of my friends who also work in the industry and collaborating with them to kind of just make cool things. And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's a lot of like just reaching out to your friends. Like I have like a bunch of friends who do food styling or prop styling, and we met because we were on those days like working together, creating stuff. And we go out and do non-work things too, but we all have that thing in common. We like to make stuff. So it's kind of like rallying people together to be like, let's just make something cool. And that's kind of this point.
And oftentimes what I find is like when friends get together just to make cool shit, that actually is the beginning of a trend that everyone else wants to follow, and you actually end up creating founder pull, like pull in the world to basically be like, okay, well, like Josh and his friends just created some really cool shit. Now I want to be part of that really cool shit. Yeah. And inadvertently, you've just got like 10 new clients somehow.
And just putting that work in the world. Like I have pictures that I just made as like a test with someone maybe 8 years ago, before I was even on my own, like, and they still occasionally end up in these clients like decks of like, oh, this is the mood board we want. I'm like little do you know, I made that picture on my like living room coffee table in a little apartment where I like moved all my furniture off to the side, like
the grind,
right. And you're like, and now we're gonna do it in this like big fancy studio where we have all this room and it's like really shot with one light or something like.
There's a few industries out there where freelance does not make sense. Is photography one of those worlds? I know, like, you're part of an agency now. When did that jump happen? Why did you make that jump?
So I think it's like two questions, like the freelance thing and the agency thing. Freelance, if you want to be the most successful in the photography world, freelance is 1,000% the way to go, because when you own your own images, you get the licensing for them, and there's a lot of money like after the fact in relicensing images, or even just like, hey, X company paid you to make the picture, but they haven't paid to use it anywhere outside of like the little screen in your hand on your phone. If they want to put it on a billboard or next to the cash register in a store, like that is different licensing, and it's worth more because it's like a physical out of home object. And so a lot of companies, like if you work in-house, you get a salary, and that salary is usually like, it's less than what I make now, but also you don't have to do anything but show up and leave work. So it's a mindset thing. Like I very much like the grind of like figuring it all out and doing different projects. And there's a lot of people who like I know in-house I probably will never do, just because it'll feel too boring. Like I'll be able to go into autopilot after like a week or two of doing it and just not enjoy it anymore. And yeah, but I also know people like, you know, they start a family and they're like, I need the stability. Like I just need a guaranteed paycheck, because there's no guarantee in freelance any client's ever going to come back to you or like anything. Or like, you know, you have to figure out also all the things like health insurance. And like this week, my payroll company was like, hey, we're stopped servicing the US in 1 month. Like, bye, figure out your payroll like in a month. You have to redo it all. And it's like, yeah, when you're full time, that stress isn't there. But yeah.
A little bit more to that though, like there was a time that I remember where you were full freelance and you were like kicking up a storm with clients. And I remember we were chilling with Tay, that's my sister, everyone watching. We're chilling with Tay, and I remember like you kind of came into our driveway and you're like, oh man, there's just like so many things I have to like now think about. And you listed like legal, finance, operations, scaling yourself. How did you find yourself being able to scale yourself as one person in an industry where like photography is up to you, the individual? How do you scale yourself?
You just learn things real quick. Like it's kind of like, all right, well today I'm going to go on the internet, and it's like, you know, you get a letter or like talk to, thankfully I have like a good accountant, like having people that you can lean on for those industries that you just don't know about. Like no one teaches you how to run a business. Like I didn't go to B school. Like even I feel like if you go to B school, like they're not going to teach you like tax filing things. Like
no, they teach you how to manage a business or like take over something that someone else has built. You know, I think that some of that is shifting, but you can't, the stuff that you're talking about, you can't teach. You can't like go to a classroom to learn that. You have to go out in the world and like, you know, scrape your knee.
You need the scary letter from like New York State finance and taxation being like this. Dude, and then
don't get us started. I'm the one who receives those letters. It's awful.
Like half the time they're from some fake company just trying to get you to pay $300 to put up like signs that say like for your employees so they won't sue you or something. And you're like, what is this world we're in? But yeah, it's figuring that out. Thankfully, friends of mine put me on a really good CPA who like answers my questions. And I realized like, oh, I just need like a payroll company. But it's just like figuring out the way to like most cost-effective way to make your life less stressful in those things. And like, yeah, like it's knowing enough to get by to like call someone's bullshit, but like also relying on the professional to like help you not get audited or sued is like kind of what I've found. And yeah, it's a lot of times it's like even just transferring over from being just a freelancer to being your like a self-employed to being your own business. All of a sudden you're liable for all these more things and no one talks about it. And you're like, wait, now I need 3 types of insurance. And you're like, what? But I didn't need it when like this paper didn't have 3 letters after my name. Like, how does this?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wait, workers' compensation.
I'm the only worker. I'm not going to sue myself.
One.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're like, I have direct access to my bank account. If I trip and fall, like my credit card's paying the hospital. Like we're good.
Did you ever find that you were tell me about that moment where you felt tired when you had a lot of success being thrown at you? How'd you deal with that? How are you thinking about it?
I know when like a lot of jobs go like back to back to back, because I'm very hands-on and anal about things and I want to do them my way. And, you know, doing that, it takes a lot out of you because you're the only one who can do them that way. And yeah, like I took on the retouching for a lot of projects. And sometimes if I had stuff lined up and like an opportunity would come that I couldn't say no to, like a really good day rate, a client I wanted to work with, but it overlapped with like a retouching schedule I already had with a different client, I'd be pulling 10-hour days on set and then stay in the studio or like go back to like wherever and be retouching, like doing rounds with this other client at night. And it's just, you know, when you're not sleeping, you're just doing 15-hour days. Like it just burns on you and you kind of learn to try to find later, like, okay, maybe I'll reach out to a retouching company to have in my back pocket when this lines up, because I'm not happy when things happen like this. Like you find the line of like where it's worth it to you to pocket that extra money and where it's worth it to you to have that just like mental release and peace of mind and like just try not to be stressed. And sometimes you don't, like when you start, you don't really have that option. And it's kind of weird as you progress in your career and your success to be like, oh, like I can afford to do this now. Like I have the luxury to do this, but then you kind of forget about how it used to be because that becomes your new reality. And it's
right.
I find it's a lot of perspective. Like you have to keep perspective. I think for probably every career, like, I'm sure in like a few months, you guys will have a whole different like podcast setup and you'll be like, hey, remember when we like did this, like, like this janky thing, and you're like, ha ha ha. And you're like,
right.
You really look back on it.
Right now, it's just literally all of our friends' goodwill coming on here.
Exactly.
Last question. What's in store for Josh Dickinson in the future?
I just want to make cool stuff. Like at this point, I have coming out like now, I have a really big project that I shot last year and we've been retouching it for like 6 months, which is unheard of basically, but it's a new Don. I can actually talk about it now because it's live. Don Julio is launching a new tequila product called Rosado, and I did the key visuals for it for all the out of home. So there's going to be, it's already starting to hit their feed on the internet, and there's billboards all around the US. Like,
wow.
There's like 160 some odd foot long by 40 foot tall, like building out of home in Miami. That it's like, my picture wrapped around a billboard, which is like, it's crazy. Yeah.
That is so cool.
And then there's like, we made
cool.
Motion, yeah.
Okay, wait, hold on. Then I have a bonus question. What was the feeling like? It could have been that most recent one, but what was the feeling? And then what did you do with that feeling? What was the feeling, that first feeling like when you saw your work in something like pretty significant? And then what did you do that same day or like that same week? What did you do with all that?
Probably because I first started shooting like editorials, not that long ago, magazines were still a thing. Now they're kind of a little bit harder to find, but like seeing pictures of mine in print. I think it was like my first ever thing in print was probably for Bloomberg, I want to say, like Bloomberg magazine. And I just remember, like, I don't even remember what I did that day, but I just remember like, I did a thing and like people can go buy it and like, you buy the magazine. You're like, I'm spending my own money to buy this thing that like someone paid me to be in. Like, I don't know, it's a weird experience. You just want to be like at Barnes and Noble or wherever people buy magazines, being like, hey, open a page like 36. Like, I took that.
Funny. Yeah. So for you, it was about reveling in the moment. It was just more about
like, I did this cool thing. I mean, even looking back on it, like I had a moment last week where I was looking through my archive, trying to find images for like a client deck. And I found the pictures from the out of home where this campaign ended up like out in the world. And it was for this mustard company. Like, this is my life. Like, this mustard campaign I shot, like, weird.
Sick.
And the pictures got printed and hung from like Quincy Hall in Boston. And like, I went to school in Boston, and like little, 17 to 21-year-old me going to like art school, thinking about fine art photography, could never even fathom, or even it was like not even anywhere of like one day, like having pictures that were like hanging up in a huge public tourist spot, like in a city. And it was just thinking back to being in class then and like being a TA and like that school. And like, even like I was teaching assistant there. And like, even though I was in that, like, I still had no idea that was a thing that could happen really. It's like when I thought of it, I was like,
just like graciousness and humbleness
came from there. And like, it's just, I don't know, it's just cool seeing your stuff out in the world in real places. I mean, like, who would have thought that would happen? Like, that's kind of the biggest thing.
Wow. Yeah.
Josh, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate hearing your story. I know everyone watching at home is going to also really, really appreciate it. This has been Bottom Line Design with Josh Dickinson, and
Agree.
and Harrison. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
I guess.
See you in the next one.
Take care, y'all.